Hi, hello. A few years ago, I made a video talking about gender dysphoria, specifically what it is and what it may feel like. And today, I wanted to make sort of a follow-up to that video, talking about its counterpart, gender euphoria, which in my opinion is not talked about enough and is just as important, if not more important, to understand than gender dysphoria. Before I get into everything, I just want to preface that my opinions are based on my own personal experience. I'm a transgender man. I identify within the binary. I experience gender dysphoria, and it's never my intention to invalidate your identity, invalidate your experience. If you do feel like I'm doing that, I sincerely apologize, and please reach out to me. Let's create a discussion. Because that's the reason why I'm making this video. I want to add to the conversation about gender dysphoria and gender euphoria and hopefully help some of you all. I also want to just run through some definitions real fast so everyone's on the same page. We know what we're talking about. First, what is transgender? Transgender is an adjective. It is an identity, and it means that you do not identify with the gender that you were assigned at birth. This does not have to be within the binary, okay? It just means you do not identify with the gender that you were assigned at birth. Cisgender means that you do identify with the gender that you were assigned at birth. So if you were assigned male at birth and you identify as male, you are cisgender. What is dysphoria? By definition, dysphoria is a state of unease or generalized dissatisfaction. When we're talking about gender dysphoria, it specifically pertains to feelings around gender, and these can present as feelings of discomfort and unease and distress. And the last thing that I want to make sure everyone's aware of is what we're talking about today, euphoria. Euphoria is the antonym of dysphoria. It can be a state of intense happiness and excitement. It can be a feeling of well-being and elation. And more importantly, in what we're talking about here, it can be feelings of comfort. And just like gender dysphoria, gender euphoria pertains to those feelings revolving around your gender. I wanted to make this video today to talk about the idea that in order to identify as transgender and to be trans, you need gender dysphoria, which I don't believe is true. Again, I want to make it clear, I am an individual who experienced gender dysphoria, so there's no way for me to be able to put myself in the shoes of someone who does not experience gender dysphoria. I can't know what that feels like exactly because I don't experience that, but I have experienced intense gender euphoria, which is why I firmly believe that you don't need gender dysphoria to warrant transitioning or warrant your identity. As a society, we are conditioned to believe that everything exists in a binary, which is kind of funny for the trans community because that's the one thing that's specifically the one thing that I feel like we're combating all the time, but just we're accustomed to placing things in binaries naturally. And in this instance, in the question of do you need gender dysphoria to be trans, it feels too often that the two sides are either you don't have any gender dysphoria, you're not trans, versus you've got gender dysphoria and you hate your body, and that is what is warranting you to transition, when in reality, it's not a binary. It is a spectrum of feelings, and there's no set way to transition. There is no need to transition if you do not want to. There's so many individuals who don't. There's so many individuals who don't want to go on hormone replacement therapy or don't want to have surgery, and this doesn't negate their transgender identity at all. I think too often we focus, and this is specifically talking about transitioning. Too often I think we focus on transitioning and surgery as being a method to alleviate gender dysphoria rather than as a method to bring on and embrace gender euphoria, because that is a feeling. Because most often if we do alleviate gender dysphoria, gender euphoria follows in its place. And so often we only focus on the negative rather than the positive. In my opinion, the feeling of gender euphoria is more powerful than the feelings of gender dysphoria, because yes, sometimes they do go hand in hand with transitioning, where you transition to alleviate the gender dysphoria. But for me specifically, I don't think there has to be negative feelings, which is generally what dysphoria is, towards something you want to change to warrant that change. I don't know if that makes sense. Going back to my experience, and specifically talking about my chest, I did not have gender dysphoria about my chest until I learned about the transgender identity and that top surgery was a procedure I could have. Up until then, it was an overall discomfort, which is definition of gender dysphoria, but I didn't know what it was. And I think I've lost my train of thought, and I hope something has come across. I think the problem in our communication is this idea that gender dysphoria is this burden of hatred toward our body, and that's not something I experienced, because I never hated my chest. Pretty much the feelings that I had were just like, I didn't have feelings toward it. I didn't feel empowered by it. And then when I started binding, I had this feeling of comfortability. And the reason why I can understand that someone may not have gender dysphoria but still want to transition is I think it's our perception that gender dysphoria is this hatred of something, and this intense, debilitating discomfort, and that's just not the case for everybody. I think we're trying too hard to fit people into boxes, and I'm gonna post this video. I don't know if I feel like I'm just rambling at this point, because I've tried to make this video like 3 times and I keep losing my train of thought. I'm going to collect myself and make another video in the future about maybe how to know if transitioning is right for you. And that might help make this video make a little bit more sense. But to me, I don't think you need dysphoria to feel euphoria. I think it is something that you can feel without feeling discomfort towards something else. More often, they go hand in hand. But again, I don't think that you need a negative to feel a positive. I think it's very okay for you to feel the positive. I think you can feel comfort and pride without feeling discomfort. I think you can feel uplifted without being beaten down in the first place. I hope this video helped. I really don't know anymore.